To guard the universe's ultimate secrets, the sky god didn't choose a mighty warrior. He gave them to a giant spider, Anansi the trickster. The artifact wasn't gold. It was a humble clay pot, holding the living dust of creation, an ancient essence that constantly whispered. The sky god thought Anansi's skeptical mind would make him immune to the pot's deception. But the pot weaponized his cleverness. It taunted his ego, asking, "If you're the smartest creature alive, why is this wisdom hidden from you?" Driven by relentless curiosity, Anansi broke his vow and opened the lid. Instantly, a blinding storm of cosmic memories exploded into the heavens. He saw empires rise. He saw angels fall. He saw civilization swallowed whole. Terrified by the raw power, Anansi desperately slammed the lid shut. But through a tiny crack, a single glowing grain of sacred dust escaped, drifting across centuries, entirely out of the spider's control. It finally reached Egypt, slipping into the breath of a sleeping queen. When she gave birth to her daughter, Makeda, humanity was forever changed. Because of one trickster's mistake, the ancient power of creation itself was permanently woven into a mortal bloodline. It started when little Makeda and her tiny black kitten, Pim, wandered into the mountain. Instead of attacking, two massive lions stepped aside, letting them enter. Deep inside, they discovered an ancient glowing silver ship, but a trickster spider named Anansi dropped from the ceiling to guard it. Brave little Pim stepped between Makeda and the towering spider. Anansi struck the tiny kitten with magical silk. Instantly, Makeda cried out in pain. A red mark appeared on the girl's arm. They shared a rare, life-linking magic called a shadow bond. To protect her, Pim's shadow stretched across the floor. The kitten dissolved into black smoke, merging directly into Makeda's shadow. He became a living, immortal protector tethered to her. With her new guardian hidden beneath her, Makeda walked outside. The terrified villagers froze as the mighty lions followed her and bowed. Moved by her miraculous survival, they crowned her empress and carved the Sphinx to immortalize the girl who conquered the lion cave. When Makeda was 18, she often slipped away in secret, practicing the ancient glowing magic that flowed through her African blood. She was guided by the ancient trickster spirit, Anansi. But one evening, the king's high priest followed her into the shadows. He watched her weave forgotten, luminous symbols. Terrified, the priest ran back to the palace. He warned that if the girl lived, she would overpower the throne. Fear seized the king's heart. He ordered her immediate death. That night, heavily armed soldiers surrounded Makeda's hiding place. But Anansi the trickster had already spun a web of illusion. As the soldiers rushed forward to seize the girl, they were actually attacking a magical phantom. With the guards completely consumed by the deception, Anansi quietly led the real Makeda away unharmed. But keeping her alive required a devastating sacrifice. Before sunrise, Anansi smuggled her aboard a ship bound for Tortola. She traded a royal execution for a harrowing one-way journey into bondage. A greedy ship captain took a chest of gold to transport a heavily chained coffin, with strict orders to keep it sealed, a rule his crew immediately broke. Below deck traveled two hidden passengers, the spider trickster Anansi and young princess Makeda. Suddenly, Anansi sensed a freezing, dark presence radiating from the cargo hold. Anticipating danger, he spun a glowing silver web across his cabin door, lacing the silk with ancient symbols to build a magical barrier. Down in the hold, greedy sailors shattered the coffin's iron links, expecting hidden treasure. Instead, a starved creature wearing a cruel brass mask rose from the shadows. The shadow vampire dissolved into pitch-black mist, consuming the fleeing sailors in seconds. The monster hunted through the ship, violently striking Anansi's cabin door, but the glowing seal of Solomon woven into the web violently repelled it. Furious, the unyielding shadow abandoned the cabin and threw itself into the ocean. The dark mist merged with the water, transforming into a massive, unnatural hurricane. The monstrous storm gripped the broken ship and dragged it across the sea. The strangers who paid the captain got exactly what they bargained for. The ship arrived at Tortola, driven there by the very monster the crew unleashed. At the Colwood Rum Distillery, a haunting song lured an enslaved man into the dark ocean. But the monster waiting for him picked a fight with the wrong spider. Makeda, a captive who was secretly a displaced queen, tracked the entranced man to the shores of Cane Garden Bay. There, emerging from the waves, was Mami Wada, a deadly ethereal water spirit setting her trap. The spirit locked eyes with Makeda, whispering sweet promises of lost crowns and ultimate freedom. Makeda's will began to slip as she was drawn toward the churning sea. But from the shadows stepped a tiny spider that suddenly morphed into a towering skeletal nightmare. This was Anansi, the legendary trickster god, and he wasn't about to let the sea spirit consume a future queen. Mami Wada shrieked in fury, summoning the ocean to crush him. Anansi just laughed. With a flick of his wrist, he shot out an unbreakable glowing golden web, binding the furious spirit and banishing her back into the depths. As the waters calmed, Makeda realized the brutal reality of Tortola. The enslaved people weren't just fighting human overseers. They were surviving a hidden, ancient war between deadly island spirits and the protective African gods who refused to leave them behind. Makeda realized she must never bargain for her freedom because she already carried the immense, untapped power of a queen deep within her blood. A simple chore of fetching a stray cow turned a young girl into a terrifying Caribbean monster because that cow actually belonged to a dark witch, and her retaliation was absolute. Amara was cursed to become La Diablesse, the Cowfoot Woman, a predatory, night-stalking entity bound to the witch's will. When her friend Makeda was relocated to a different plantation at Josiah's Bay, she found herself stalked in the dead of night. But Makeda looked past the demonic exterior and recognized her lost friend. She wasn't alone. Anansi, the trickster spider, called to her from the shadows. He taught Makeda how to form a Solomon seal, a powerful shadow magic technique. She unleashed the seal, casting a physical trap of dark energy that firmly snared the hoofed beast. With the monster physically restrained, Makeda launched a psychological attack. She refused to use the monster's title, desperately shouting Amara's real name to awaken her buried human memories. The shadow seal held the creature just long enough for the human mind to regain control. The magical binding unraveled, and the demonic hoof shattered back into a human foot. The terrifying Cowfoot Woman was finally defeated. Makeda proved that the only way to beat the curse was by rescuing the human trapped inside. When a blood-drinking fireball hunted them through the dense jungle of Longlook, Makeda realized the only way to survive was to poison the one thing the monster left behind. Because this creature, a Caribbean monster known as a succulent, isn't your average vampire. To transform into that invincible, flying mass of fire, it actually has to peel off its own human skin and hide it in a lair. Knowing sunrise was approaching, Makeda raced toward the decaying hut on the Nottingham estate. Inside, draped across a wooden coffin, lay the monster's empty flesh. Makeda aggressively rubbed crushed hot pepper and ancient herbs directly into the skin, corrupting the dark magic that held it together. Suddenly, the screeching succulent burst through the doors. The morning sun was rising, and the panicked creature desperately needed her human form to survive the light. But as her fiery hands grabbed the skin, the hidden pepper ignited, burning her from the outside in. Blocked from her only protection, the monster was forced to face the harsh morning sun. And just like that, the fiery nightmare of the Nottingham estate instantly crumbled into nothing but ashes. Fresh off defeating a fire demon, Makeda was banished to the brutal lower estate sugarworks, carrying 2 ancient magic books. But beneath a roaring iron boiler, she found something else, a mysterious, brightly lit egg. To hatch the wish-granting spirit inside, her text demanded a bizarre physical ritual. Makeda had to keep the egg pressed tightly beneath her armpit for 28 straight days. She survived the back-breaking labor of the cane fields, while secretly enduring the egg's blistering heat right against her ribs. On the 28th day, the shell finally shattered. Out crawled the Baku, a green trickster spirit with a wicked grin. It offered a wish, but with a deadly catch. A Baku always extracts a dangerous price. The creature demanded its ultimate freedom to roam the world. Makeda agreed, but played the trickster at its own deceptive game. She granted its freedom, but used a magical loophole to bind the spirit to a lifetime of mandatory favors. That grueling month-long physical sacrifice didn't just hatch a dangerous monster. It secured Makeda a supernatural weapon bound by her own rules, giving her the exact magical upper hand she needed to finally strike back and liberate her people.